Okay, so yeah, about the guy. The guy, it's me. I'm from Portugal. I'm living and working in the UK for the past 5 years. But I have around like 20-ish years around UX, which I'm not going to tell you my age. Currently working in a startup called Headstart.io. Basically, what we do, just to briefly kind of a little bit of context around that, we are an early talent tracking system, and with the emphasis of diversity and inclusion. So basically, we try to make sure that we even the play field of the hiring process, and try to make it less discriminatory as they currently, unfortunately, are for so many companies. And my role is basically making sure that the discovery practices are in place in this software as a service product that we're developing. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of what I currently work. Before that, I was working with agencies. I was working with big companies, a lot of nice brand names. I don't really care about that. I don't think that I make best of my work with big brand names. So I don't think that's something that you should care about so much. But yeah, that's let's assume that there's a lot of that stuff there, but that's fine. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm an expert, but I just want to tell you that I don't think I'm an ignorant either. Okay, so let's put it that way. So yeah, discovery. What the hell do we mean by this? So there are certain things that I certainly don't mean by, and one of the things is discovery understood as a HIPPO discovery, which is basically discovery is asking or listening to your boss and ask, what should we build? That's a very common type of discovery. Not sure if that's a discovery we want to do. And that's basically what I would say, like the level 0 of discovery. You have another type, which is, I just made up this one, TBO, it's team-based opinion discovery. Now, this is getting very popular. I'm not sure if it's more popular than HIPPO, but it's getting some traction for sure. It's basically, discovery is asking within your team and your team only, what should we build? And so that's another kind of, I would say this is level 1. If the other one was level 0, it's level 1. Slightly better, but I would say that's what we're aiming. And there's another type, that's the type that I would like us to think about more and develop more. It's the user-centric design-oriented approach to discovery. And so basically, yes, you have the just solve it and do it collaboratively and fail fast and lean and design thinking and all that stuff, but with the focus on the user. So discovery is asking the user what problem that you have, that the user has, of course, should we solve for you? So what problem should we solve for you? So starting from user research down to explorative ideas. That's the user-centered design way, at least the way I kind of read it. And that's the way I would normally like to explore discovery. But in a more serious tone, let's see how others are defining discovery in this space. So, just looking around, how is discovery defined? What we mean by this in different from different authors. Those, I believe, they are experts, unlike me. So we have Teresa Torres. And she's a very well-known voice. I presume many of you will know Teresa Torres, but basically, from what I could find out, she defines discovery as all the activities that we do to decide what to build. So for me, is this Teresa Torres is emphasizing this element of decide what to build. So it's a set of activities and related with something that you decide to build. So that is interesting. Then we have Jeff Patton. I always say Jeff Patton. I'm not sure why I have to correct myself, and here I am live just saying the wrong of the guy wrongly. But yeah, Jeff Patton emphasizes the fact that it's not just about any build, but to build the right thing. So this is something I really enjoy about Jeff Patton. It goes a little bit further in terms of it's not about just the building, it's about building the right thing. And so this is an emphasis I would put on his definition. Then we have a kind of a more verbose one from Tim Erbig that says it's an element of what I would like about this definition is about reducing risks. So he introduces this element of reducing risks. It also introduces this element of iterative process. And it not only focus on the build, but it also focus on the right audience. And so this is something I found quite interesting that he brings. Again, I'm not sure about the chronology. This is just the way they kind of share those kind of discovery definitions here and there online that I could just grab. So the chronology may not be exactly this, but it's quite interesting to see the different nuances on each definition of discovery. We have also this guy, Dan Brown. It's basically more focused on the design side of things. So because, a lot of this conversation about product discovery is around like sometimes, product management topics, sometimes UX topics, sometimes it's kind of it's in between those two buckets, if we want to have buckets. Dan Brown kind of comes from a design perspective, and he talks not just about building stuff, but I think because he talks about this from a design perspective, I think he can also consider the fact that sometimes you have to remove stuff. So it's not just about adding and adding and adding stuff and how can we add more stuff to build more value, but also the discovery may also help you identify what are the things that you want to take out, which is something that we don't think so often, I would say. So this is an interesting perspective from that. And well, looking at all this stuff and more, we kind of came up with our own definition of at Headstart. And basically, this is the guy again. So the guy would say that discovery is a continuously measurable collaborative exercise to understand a problem and explore hypotheses in order to inform delivery towards desirable user outcomes. So if there wasn't enough definitions of discovery in the world, the guy just had one more. So, but unlike, I mean, I think I'm on the shoulders of giants here. So this is just something that it's an aggregation of thoughts for very smart people. But I want us to drill down on this a little bit more, on this definition, because I think there's some details here that is worth to explore. So I will try to kind of come up with some principles that this definition kind of reveals. One is around understanding the problem. So discovery starts with a problem. I believe if there is no problem to solve, there's no time to spend in discovery. I mean, just do something else. But how about this fancy, shiny idea I just had? Can you discover that? Normally I say no. I don't discover fancy ideas. Sorry, mate. So yeah, we don't work from fancy ideas to discovery. It's the other way around. And this is very important because it's very common that, just when you are in the product team, I will be more focused on products. So excuse me, all service designers out there, but my focus has generally been around product. But when you're talking about with product teams, it's very common that, people from different sectors wants to build stuff into the product and just wants to add stuff into the product. And basically for them to validate their ideas, they ask you or your team to, can you discover this and make sure that my fancy idea actually it's really incredible. And this is flipping things around, right? So this is bias. So what do we do instead? Well, we inquire and we observe. And this is, sometimes people ask me, what are the good qualities of a UXer? I think, the capacity to observe, the capacity to listen, it are quite good qualities. And we focus too much on tools sometimes and not so much in this kind of a basic thing. So, by inquire, I mean like things like user interviews, contextual inquiries, diary studies, support call monitoring, all that kind of stuff that you do, surveys, analytics, basically all the bits of evaluative discovery. This is called evaluative research. So all these kind of activities that you do, this is how you inquire. So you have a goal in mind, you have something that you need to define, and you go from there. Yeah. But you have the other kind. You have to observe as well. And to observe, I'll give you an example of kind of a little bit of a process that we follow at Headstart. It's not linear as this, but it has a lot of these points. And basically, is the observation bit is more tricky, because of course you can observe with an objective in mind, with a goal-oriented approach. But in this case, what do you do with the information that comes through chats, through the feedback portals, through emails, through client meeting notes, sales notes, to on-site widgets. If you happen to have a on-site widget that says, how do you think about this experience, rate it and write something about it. So all this information comes through your team, and how do you deal with that? So I call that ad hoc feedback. Is as a feedback that just comes without you to prompting through it. So it just appears. So because it just appears, you cannot do nothing with it just as it is. You have to do something about it. You have to groom it. So what we do with this is we collect it, we aggregate it, just to make sense of, because it is so many different sources. You want to put all in some place. You want to clean it because some of these things are just huge chain emails with this 30 kilometers or miles of email signatures that you don't really need. So just remove those things. So clean it, split it, because sometimes a piece of feedback does have like a lot of ideas on it and a lot of different subjects in the same element. So you may wish to kind of split that. You have to clarify it as well, because when you receive those kind of things, again, you or your team, you may wish to clarify the context. Where does this come from? And sometimes that changes your what has meant by, or what you believe it was meant by the user. You have to normalize it somehow to make who is the client, where does this come from? What is the topic generally related with it? So this is the kind of things that you can do, because this feedback is generally unorganized. So the normalization is also a very important step in this. And you process it. By process, I mean just tag it, for example. And at the end, you connect. So connecting means like you connect with some element on the product roadmap, or you connect it with some persona that you're trying to build, whatever that could be. But this is, again, this is not completely linear, but it's certainly something that, because it's ad hoc feedback, we have to kind of deal with it and groom it. And this is basically a definition of grooming in a more detail. So yeah, so we inquire, we observe, and this is pretty much what we have with this exercise. Now, what do we do with all this information? So the information that we observe, the information that we inquire, do we build a report? Hell no. What? No, come on, just be serious. I mean, I don't know how many times have you seen people excited by a 200 pages report, but I don't remember any face if I try to make that exercise in my mind. So no, I think there is better ways to do this. And at the end of the day, you can look at all this information and create a user scenario, or create a how might we, or create a storyboard that tells a story that you can actually perceive better what you're talking about, or put it on a journey map or an experience map, or make this as part of a persona, or creating a problem statement or need statement. So I'll give you an example of an output that we use at Headstart, and it may sound. So for some of those problem statements, just for you to be clear, some of those problem statements may have like perhaps 100 observations. So this is with a lot of text. So the observations are like small quotes that we see from an interview, from observation elsewhere. So basically we aggregate all those observations, then we say, okay, I think we have an insight here. How do we translate this to the other members of our team? How do we translate this to the business? And this is our way to communicate this. So there is a huge amount of information that is aggregated here. As you may or may not know, to define means to cut. And this is what we're doing. We are defining this, we are cutting this, this is a summary. So some details will be lost, but as far as you keep the trail, you should be fine. And the biggest value of this, don't mind about the details and what I'm kind of writing here. This is a real example, but don't mind about the what comes after the bold. But the structure, I think, helps you tell this story. So first of all, who is the persona? Who is the user? If you have the real user, how are they feeling about what they are feeling? That what are the needs? And what do they want to accomplish with these needs, and what is the obstacle that they're facing. And so this is the kind of the basic structure. And again, it's not here by chance. It's just this was kind of developed in a way that it helps us tell a story, not only to your team that may be aware of this more closely, but also to others in the business. So as you can see here, I'm kind of stepping towards a little bit of the evangelization element of this as well. It's very important. Sorry, let me just, yeah. So basically, that's it about the things about problem and the problem definition. I would just like to ask if anyone has any questions, comments, thoughts, or different ways of doing or seeing this. And yeah, or rocks. You can throw me rocks as well. That's it's virtual. I think I'm relatively safe, so I'll just give it a few more.
I see that Tom and Nielsen, you had a question earlier. Do you want to ask your question now?
Yes, please. You want me to read my own question?
Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
What are some of the main items from idea to project start or project go or no go? What are some of the phases, or what happens before the project backlog?
What happens before the project backlog?
Yep.
You mean like, by backlog, you mean like the list of features that you want to build on a product, for example?
Yeah. I mean, even before the project starts, maybe somebody has an idea.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out to be an idea that's not feasible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's already been developed in a third-party product.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go from that idea and kind of go through sort of handling that idea?
Yeah. Well, I'm a very despotic bastard sometimes. So when some ideas come through from the team members, oh, I have this incredible idea. I say, yeah, good for you. And I ignore them. No, I'm joking. The thing is, they will go through the same process that I shared before, the ad hoc process. So you need to qualify that idea. Of course, the question you ask may seem, this is a very kind of hard to define line, I guess, in at least in my head, between what is the responsibility of a UX professional, what is the responsibility of someone with a product management background. So if you're talking about priority, where should this sit? Is this a very valuable idea, or are we considered that the only valid ideas are the ones who are expressing user needs? Aren't there any other valid ideas? Perhaps they are. So the product manager would have that capacity to kind of put the checks and balances and evaluate that. But when we have at Headstart, just to give an example, when someone kind of gives a very specific idea, it goes directly as a head hoc thing, because unless it is related with a specific project that we are working on, or it's related with it's part of a design sprint that we are actually running, or some of those things. But if it's not, if it's just, look, I was just navigating, I think this could be a very interesting idea, it goes to the ad hoc process. Now the thing is practicality. How does that work? Well, we decided to make like regular sessions, so among ourselves. So every week we get together, customer success, UX folks, product manager folks, just get together and navigate through the list of ad hoc things that we are listening through, our users or internal, but we just flag that as internal. Yeah, and of course we would ask more qualification elements. Yeah.
How many people is in your company? How many employees do you have?
We are 16 at the moment. We are a startup, very small one.
Oh, okay.
But very agile and crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Any other questions before we move on from anyone? I think we're good.
Just as a side note, if you want, I don't, it's not, while it's true that I currently work on a company with 16 people, it's also true that I've worked in a company with 48 UX professionals and several product teams. So if you have any questions related to that scenario, I don't mind kind of, stepping in and just talking a little bit about that as well. Okay, just for context. Should I proceed?
Yes,
No
please.
more questions? You're all shy. Come on. Okay, so here's one. Discovery is the exercise that allows you to understand upfront what is the right thing to build. And I don't know how many times I've read this or I've been told this. And, in the face of the following, I would ask you, do you agree with this statement? And because sometimes I do. And I would say by mistake, I do. And there's a lot of fallacies around discovery, things that seem true, but they aren't. And this one, I think it's one of them. So discovery is the exercise that allows you to understand upfront what is the right thing to build. No, it isn't. And I'm sorry, it isn't. And I get it. I'll say this again because this is so common. Here is the same slide twice. So yes, it's not a way for you to do this. You cannot identify the right thing to build upfront. And this is very interesting because if I count the amount of formulas that exist in a role to prioritize product features in order for you to get what is the right thing to build, oh my God, that's and the amount of books that we have around this, to kind of to explore this space of what are the amazing things that we know you're gonna have a success up front. And I don't think we have a crystal ball, and I don't think that's really the way to go. So, and why not? One may ask. I mean, we have a researched problem, and we have a strategic alignment. So, why is that not enough? I mean, hell, we made our usability tests. We even evaluate user mental models, and and we use those fancy words. And why is this enough? Why aren't fancy words enough? Well, because you're missing something crucial, I believe, very crucial to any discovery process. The ability to say, I don't know. We don't know. We can tell. So this is very crucial. A lot of times we just forget about this. We just assume because it's in a professional environment, what happens is this perception, this assumption that I don't know, it's something that is not well seen, right? Basically, if you say I don't know, you will be perceived as an ignorant, therefore unprofessional, therefore you don't earn your salary because you just what the hell is that? What do you mean you don't know? I'm paying you for you to know. And actually, discovery is a lot about this exercise of exploring and assuming what you don't know. And as soon as we understand this, as soon as we start to bring value to the products or the services that we are building. So how can we know upfront what is the right thing to build? We can, or at least I don't know how we can so far, because upfront is all speculative. It's still on opinion land. It's, again, no amount of formula or strategy will give you that crucial experience that is to have your product or service out there. Because when you are in opinion land, people will say just whatever, right? And I know there's a lot of tricks. We don't ask directly. We do this, we do that. All that is fine. But still, when you put it out there with the experience, that's a total different story. So what should we do instead, I would say? You have to explore the hypothesis. So explorative hypothesis should be at the core of our discovery endeavors. That's the second principle. And some people call this like the solution space. So we have the problem space and the solution space. But when I was kind of thinking about this, I kind of found the solution space kind of presumptuous in a sense that you don't really know if that's a solution. So it's still an hypothesis. And the explorative element is not just something fancy that is there around, near hypothesis. The explorer is actually quite crucial here. So it's not just about having an hypothesis and bring that hypothesis and see, well, this is not something that is absolutely written in stone. It's just an hypothesis. Yeah, but are you actually exploring multiple hypotheses, or what are you doing there? So I think I'm going to delve a little bit more into how we can do this. So it's kind of it's not this. You don't use an opportunity canvas to explore an hypothesis, but use an opportunity canvas to just kind of make that hypothesis tangible. So that's one way. So you look and you kind of groom this hypothesis a little bit more, and you have this product canvas, and you kind of just say, okay, from this product canvas, can we move forward and see where this hypothesis can take us? But you have other things like from the guys from Envision who have this experiment statement, and it's got a short version, but again, it's the same principle of putting stuff in a certain format that allows your team and everyone within your product or service team to understand we are just exploring an hypothesis here, which means it can fail, which means we have to measure it somehow. Yeah, so you can have an opportunity canvas workshop. You can have this kind of experimental statements. You can have prototyping, and this is not a typo. If you know Alberto Savoia, the guy kind of plays with this a little bit. So it's because discovery is not just about product features and see if the right feature is, what is the right feature to build. Discovery is also about, is this a nice business idea, for example? So prototyping, which is not a typo or not another way of saying prototype wrongly, it's prototyping, it's before prototype. And this is something that Alberto Savoia kind of brings forward. And I think it's a very interesting concept. But to me, that's just a variation of an MVP, but I will stop right there. Then you have opportunity trees. As Teresa Torres kind of shares, this is also an interesting way because she is the one who says this. It's not an innovative thing in a sense of it's a decision tree, right? So you have the core elements, and basically it's a way for you to understand across that tree what are the hypotheses that you have explored that work, what are the ones that didn't work, and basically you kind of have this visible element that can help you guide through hypothesis exploration and opportunity explorations, as Teresa Torres mentioned. And you can also run a design sprint exercise. So besides those two things that I have here, you can have, of course, a lot of other ways of exploring an hypothesis. So again, I'll bring some examples from Headstart. At Headstart, we explore hypotheses by using a variation of what is called a design sprint. And again, design sprint is just a fancy name for ideation, really. I mean, if you've been here long enough, when you look at the design sprints, you understand that that's really just an aggregation of ideation things. So I wouldn't be so enthusiastic about certain things sometimes, but yeah, it's basically what we do here is we look at, we set up some ideation sessions. We use a double diamond design principle like diverge, converge, and how, and of course you have to understand like, how will the team morale be affected through this process? How will be the energy levels through this process? And kind of all this kind of plays a role while you're designing these ideation sessions among the team, and who is involved at what stage. All this needs to be into consideration. So I call it design sprint because it's a very common term used nowadays, but we kind of craft this on ourselves, by ourselves, in terms of kind of defining the ideation. We are a remote company by default, even before COVID situations. So we are 100% remote. And so all this that you see here is kind of how do we run a remote design sprint. Now, this will give a talk in itself. I'm not going to do that now. You see like 3 days there, but this is just a small section of the full thing. But yeah, I will just leave it here for now in terms of the things related to this design sprint. So, but this is not just about running a design sprint or whatever exercise you do, and that's it, and then you've done it, and then the hypothesis, then we know our work is done. We basically you do one iteration, and that's fine. I know it's not. This is not about just running one thing of this. This is about understanding that we're doing this as an experimentation. It's not as a way to shortcut the product development process. And while we don't understand that, we will keep doing this just once. And once we do this once, we're gonna run to another idea, and then we're going to do another new idea, and that's what we do. And very, very rarely we go back. And this is why this joke kind of exists. What is the biggest lie in product management? Version 2.0. That's the biggest lie. I don't know. I've been in a lot of products, multiple product teams, and how many times have you heard, yeah, we're gonna tackle that in version 2.0. Yeah, mate, yeah, sure you will. I'm still waiting for some version 2.0 like 6 years ago. So I'm not sure. So yeah, it feels like a big lie, but this reflects on us as well. This reflects on our professional capacities, because I think it's on us as well to kind of bring this experimentation element forward. So this is a very tough battle to tackle, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have about exploring hypotheses. Again, the guys or the girls with rocks. Anyone has any questions? Or rocks again?
I have a question. I'm wondering how, I think sometimes I encounter people who feel we should just know what the answer, the solution is. Because I'm sorry, it's a long question, because often people, I think as an agency, approach us already having determined the what of what the solution is going to be and are looking for a partner to help them define how they do that. So the solution is known. It's just a matter of defining for them how it's going to show up in the world and what it's going to look like and what the experience is going to be. And sometimes I find myself talking to people who say, right, so just look at our product and tell us some recommendations. And that for them is like a way to validate or, validate our expertise or mitigate risk because they're looking for someone who is experienced. But where people don't understand or maybe appreciate that discovery is when that happens. How do you get buy-in?
Good question. Tough one. I have very hot debates with some of the clients because of that as well. I'm so glad I'm not an expert because that's a really tough one. Look, I'm sorry, but it's like always. It's a lot of this is it depends, but it depends a lot about who are you talking to, how you feel that person will how you communicate that thing with that person. Because I had people who I had to kind of basically show them that their assumptions were wrong, and clearly basically have some user sessions up front. Exploring that problem that they were saying they were solving and they already know the solution, and kind of seeing people kind of struggling with the solution that they were proposing or not getting why would that solution will work. And the fact that you record those sessions and you just present those users kind of talking, it brings that person a moment of, oh my God, this is not someone else saying, this is not an expertise and us against expertise. This is no longer like my opinion, and all opinions are subjective, therefore, it's just your idea against mine. You just turn the things and kind of put the voice on the users and you bring the users up front. But the reason why I think this is difficult is that some people are still willing to kind of get into that and kind of getting that acknowledged, but other times they just don't. And it's another approach that I like to take is and it's a controversial one, is the Schindler's List approach, which is basically you can save a lot of Jewish by while still shaking hands with Hitler. And basically Schindler saved a lot of Jews by shaking hands with Hitler. This is basically, he keep his factory open while a lot of Jews he saved a lot of lives by keeping the factory open, but for him to keep the factory open, he has to pretend to be a fascist. Right? And so sometimes, I'm sorry for this extreme example, but sometimes the way forward is to say and to kind of find different ways of accomplish that goal. So little by little, so instead of kind of going all bang and saying, no, sorry, you're wrong, or no, I'm wrong. So avoid confrontation sometimes is the best, is also the best solution. So for some people, confrontation works fine if you kind of present results and you remove yourself from, it's not your opinion against the other. So that's one way. The other way is just really avoid confrontation and just, I don't know the word in English, but it's, without being so direct, but kind of a turn around, and little by little, you kind of, you build that thing. Because what happens sometimes is discovery is not something that you can just arrive there and say, hey guys, here is discovery. You get it? Cool, let's do it. It's very, very rarely, because it's kind of a mindset. It's a long game here. So for you to understand certain concepts of discovery, you also have to understand other concepts and other ideas. So for example, team empowerment is extremely important. If you don't have team empowerment and you want to talk about discovery on a company that doesn't have empowerment built in, it's very hard. Or if you have a CEO that's very egotistic, that really likes his ideas, that he believes is the next Steve Jobs, and that's the way forward, again, that's very hard to have a discovery conversation. Even if Steve Jobs to kind of, I think it defends a little bit the discovery bits, but well, it's just yeah. I think there's two, but I don't think there's like a single answer for this. But it's a tough one, but one that I think we have to kind of evaluate with whom are we speaking to and just adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's all for the rocks for now, Marcio.
Okay. I dodged this one.
Yes.
Okay, so back to the definition. It's also a discovery is also a collaborative exercise. So even in UX teams of one, and this may happen even in agencies, because if you are an agency and your model is kind of going to a client and deploy a team there, sometimes the client says, I'm not going to pay a team. I'm just going to pay one guy. Okay, so even if you have a UX team of one, collaboration is still paramount. So discovery is a collaborative exercise, and it needs to be a collaborative exercise. So this is not just something that is nice to have. Basically, if you are doing discovery in between the UX lead and the product manager, which it happens, and it happens quite often, like we know the user, let's talk in between ourselves and kind of define what we need to build, you're probably doing it wrong. You don't involve your team, and you condemn to affect teams' morale. You're condemned to affect teams' understanding, and affecting their contribution towards where you're heading. And so, of course, multidisciplinarity is something key, and empowerment also absolutely key. So by not doing that, I think you're throwing spanner in the works, and I can assure you this is hard enough without one. So yeah, that's around. That's what I have to say about this. But in terms of, just to give you an example, so I had luckily, okay, at Headstart, I didn't have to convince the CEO about the importance of discovery, but I will still give some tips around that. But so to involve the team at Headstart, despite them being very empowered, I still have to kind of bring some stuff up, because if they're not used to discovery, what are the things that you can do to just bring people aboard? Actually, this is another tip for you, actually, in terms of answering the question you asked me. Sometimes if you cannot convince one person, well, find others who can convince, like find a group. And this is an interesting way also as well to explore that as a response. So in this case, for example, I created something called Discovery Channel, which is kind of a joke with the true Discovery Channel. But it's small video snippets that we record about something that we find out, and they're purposely small, they're purposely snappy, and because no one really wants to dive into the details about this, but it kind of engage people to understand more about it. And I do some jokes while in these videos, while recording these videos, just to enable that communication a little bit better. We also create a channel, a chat channel called UX Research for a Day. So every time we run a usability session, or we know we're going to run a usability session or observation session, and that's a schedule, just go to that channel and say, does anyone wants to join as an observer, as an observer? And then basically what happens is they will join that session if they wish, and they will take notes, and they will have all the instructions to follow, so that we don't have random observations, but the ones that are properly taken. And that's one of other ways. If you have a physical space, use a wall to share the user needs, the frustrations in a way that is visible. So that's also something that may work for some companies who never had discovery before, so they have no understanding of what the user is. So why don't you create like a user pains wall? So that's something that it may work as well. Or invite to the company a new hire, as I did it in the past. I'm laughing because the HR person kind of contacted me saying, sorry, Márcio, if you're hiring someone, I need to know about it. What happened is I was hiring a new person, but that person was a persona. So it's not really a person, but I had this huge sprints and kind of invite everyone to meet this new hire that we had, and the hires were personas. So yeah, this is just again another way to engage people towards this topic of discovery. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be creative. But I also want to share with you some stuff around, because I get that a lot of this is about buying in and getting buy-in from people, and in terms of the values of discovery. So I'm going to just share some things that I believe kind of are related with discovery, and I think are almost undeniable values for a product or service, whatever you are building. I'll start with a joke. I'm not sure. This is from a lean product playbook from Dan Olson. I'm not sure if you may be familiarized with this or not, but this question: how can we make a pen to work in space? And so NASA had this question: how can we make a pen to work in space? And basically, they've spent 1 million kind of developing this pen and the special ink so that the pen can work in space. And and this is the Russian response to that. So, and this is, what happened here? What happened here is that, again, this is a joke, I will tell more about this, but what happened here is that on the NASA land, they will focus on the solution. How can I make a pen? While on the Russian land, they were focused this through the problem focus. So how can we write in space? So the problem is I cannot write. How can I write? Use a pen, use a pencil, whatever, just, write. So this is what happens a lot when you just focus on the solution, right? You just focus on the pen and spend 1 million playing with ink. Now, this is a joke, a kind of a contextual, a little bit more contextual around this. I think today you do use a pen, you don't use a pencil, because if you have a pencil, it may break, and if it breaks, it goes to the spaceship elsewhere, and that may be problematic. So therefore, I'm not sure if it's worth 1 million, but yeah, it's definitely there. I think a pen nowadays. So that's what we use standardly in space. I'm no astronaut. I just read this somewhere. Sometimes I'm in the mundo. Oh well. So things that. So this is one thing. So yeah, let's focus on the problem. So that's one of the values, perhaps. So it can help you kind of save money, right? 1 million in that case, but it's a money saver exercise. I try to ignite this culture at Headstart currently. Every time we do, because it's very hard to embrace this culture of every time you don't do something, you celebrate. So it's not every time you have a new feature, you celebrate. It's every time you don't have a new feature, you celebrate. Because every time you don't have a new feature, it may be some time that, great news. You didn't spend 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 months building something that no one really wants, because you did this process, you've kind of acknowledged that that's not something that you should be building. Therefore, you're saving money. So, celebrate that. And this is something that's very hard to celebrate because we're very used to celebrate just features, feature. So yeah, this is one of the things that I say discovery does help, kind of a saving money. It feeds on a vision as well. So if you want to build a vision across your team, make sure that everyone it's aiming towards a specific goal, that things are aligned. Using discovery and the discovery process kind of helps you fit into that vision. And back in my head, I do have this concept of experience vision. And Jared Spool talks about this a lot. And it's definitely interesting to read about experience visions. It's also a risk reduction strategy by default. So this is basically at the core of discovery practices, regardless of the authors. There is this element of risk reduction strategy. So it allows you to reduce risk. So because again, it's not just about product features. It may be about use discovery to evaluate if whatever partnership you're running is a good or bad partnership, or do you have a good or bad sales strategy? Well, discover that. Is it legal? Is it ethical? All those things are discovery questions that you can embrace with the discovery process. It also gets you into the user need focus. So that's almost a no-brainer. So if you're not addressing anyone's needs, how long you will remain out there? I don't know. So Discover offers us an answer to that as well. Because again, it's a process, so everyone could be, if it's collaborative, if it's in this way, everyone will be involved, and therefore you'll get that focus from all the team, not just a portion of the team. And of course, it helps you avoid futurities. I'm not sure if, again, I'm not sure if I read this like a long years ago, if I just made it up, but futurities is basically a disease. And it happens when you have too many features on a product, right? Feature. And everyone just talks about feature. So when you say this feature like this, I'm now having the symptoms of futurities. So you add features, you add in complexity to the design, and likewise, or on opposite direction, you are decreasing the quality of the experience. So how do you avoid this? By saying no. Just say no. Hey, let's build this. No, it's so easy, right? But how do you say no with confidence? Well, use discovery, right? Discovery will be the backup element that will kind of provide you this opportunity for you to say no, yeah, with confidence. No, because there's no one's kind of talking about this or having a problem about this. So sorry, no. And it also pushes you to do more than useful stuff. This is kind of, again, Jared Spool. I really like that guy, by the way. But it says that innovation is what you do from frustration to delight. And basically, you have these satisfaction surveys. You have this, let's put something useful, but it's still very low bar. And if you want to kind of try to find those delightful elements on experience, I would say, lean on discovery to kind of try to identify those things. And there are some interesting examples of experiences that lean into that and kind of identify that. So again, I believe a good discovery process will allow you to just touch those delightful points. Or luck, can also have luck. But I'm not sure if that's something that you want to. So how do we find delightful points on an experience? Well, you have luck and you say this feature may be interesting, and then you implement it and you have luck and that thing is delightful, or you have a proper process to kind of try to identify those. And this is more like the startup thing. And this is like this number, this 60% is more like in the UK. So look, this is the survival rate for UK business between 2013 and 2017 from the Office for National Statistics. And basically what he's saying is, yes, if you have a startup and if you kind of have a nice idea and everything, well, bear in mind that 60% of you will fail. This is not a very kind of a cheerful thing, but yeah. And when we look into the details about how this is more focused on startups, but how startups fail, you can see like there's things like no market need, which I believe is something related with users, because I'm not sure what you mean by market, but I presume you mean people. So yeah, if you're addressing something that people don't want, you'll have no market need. It may be related with the fact that you ignore your customers, or it may be related with the fact that you have an unfriendly user product. So all those things, it feels like they are related with discovery. And if you kind of bring all these percentages together, it gives you around 70%. So I think it's a huge number to consider. And to, when you ignore, I think I think this says a little bit about, your future. So yeah, any questions regarding like team involvement and evangelization, or any tips, any particular story you wish to share? Just again, the rocks.
It looks like we have one question here for you. How do you manage or set expectations for a person before their idea is rejected? So it's kind of like this, avoiding featureitis, saying no, but how do you just, I guess, in terms of interpersonal communication, like break the news?
Yeah, it's again personal communication. I mean, look, I don't know. It depends on the person, right? But this is an ego game a lot of times, right? This is about egos. I have this very important. So this is if you're having this conversation as a dialogue between one person and another, and this is how you're doing discovery, I would feel that you have to back that up with a process that helps you have that conversation. So instead of having that confrontation as that conversation, if you have a process behind it, that will facilitate that conversation. So it's like, for example, if someone comes with a nice idea, or they feel that it's a nice idea, and I know, I didn't saw any kind of a resonance of that from the discovery we've been running, I say, look, okay, I'll bring it to the ad hoc process, and we're going to groom it, and we're going to see if there's any elements of it that may be interesting or not. But you see what I'm doing here? I'm not saying like, sorry, man, it's right, because I don't really know actually as well. So this really needs to go to that grooming process. So again, it's about, if you have a process in place, I think that will help facilitate that conversation. And I would just signalize that element there. If you're having a one-on-one conversation between that, it may be just whatever you answer, it may not be the most important thing. It may be like, what kind of process can we implement so that these conversations can happen in a context that is easy to understand, that we don't value internal ideas as much as we value user insights.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or rocks from anyone? I think you're safe.
Okay, cool. This is from Life of Brian. For anyone who doesn't know, I would definitely recommend the movie. So let's continue on the definition. Discovery is a continuously measurable collaborative exercise, blah, blah, blah. So you have to measure those things. So what I mean by this is, sure, I mean, we have to measure when you're running evaluative research, you have to measure all the stuff. But what I'm talking about here is you also have to measure the discovery process that you are implementing. So it's a discovery practice in itself that needs to be measured as well. And in this case, I'm just going to share with you kind of what we do at Headstart, because I didn't saw any kind of a discovery measurement framework out there. But if you know one, and I'm happy to kind of learn from it as well. So this is what we have. So you remember the definition. We had things like collaborative, outcome focused, testable, measurable, and continuous. Those things are not made up. Those things are coming from the definition, and the definition is coming from a lot of kind of articles, studies, conferences, whatever that are on discovery, and that kind of the definition resumes all this. So from that definition, because sometimes we ask, why the hell are you doing a definition? Why do we need a definition? Well, here's an example of a definition being used. So we kind of grab the core elements of the definition, and we create those kind of things: collaborative, outcome focused, testable, measurable, continuous. Okay, so based on this discovery definition, what we're trying to do is basically look at each of those things and say, okay, collaboratively speaking, how is our discovery going on so far? So is this discovery done by one, or is this discovery done by everyone, or just two of us? Or is this an ad hoc approach, or are we following some set of guidelines? Because if you want this process to be collaborative, that's cool. But if anyone want to just throw whatever they feel like at any stage, that's not cool. So you may wish to implement some guidelines. So if you have guidelines, if you have discovery done by more people, as you can see, this 12% can kind of grow and become a 100% thing. So these things like the items that you see underneath each of those topics, collaborative, outcome focus, etc. Those items are items that I found they will be valuable in order for us to progress the discovery practice at Headstart. So this is on a specific context. I think some of them can be copied to other projects, but I feel this is an exercise that we should do ourselves. Each of you, if you are responsible for this area, to just kind of go into each of those things and ask yourself, according to our current situation and context, how can we improve our collaboration? How can we make sure that we're more outcome focused and less output focused? And again, I have some points for that. And again, we measure this. So and the same with testable and measurable and continuous. I'm not going to go into the details of each of those things here. I'm not even sure if this is the latest one, but just to give you an idea. So this is of course what you would aim towards to, but and this may be this is not maybe this is dynamic. Sometimes things go up, sometimes things go down. Sometimes you improve something, but sometimes something just gets forgotten. So all this is a visual tool, but also kind of a sense check tool that helps you, I believe, kind of make sense of your discovery practice and make sure you are progressing your discovery practice at that company.